Okay, this is the second video which goes after the mechanics of the basics of KvK. Please watch that if you haven't watched yet. Now let's talk about defending your own kingdom. We need to separate into three different scenarios. So let's define the strength of a player as the combination between his stats and rally size. So I would separate into three different scenarios. When we're comparing the strength of your top stats guy and the Conquering Kingdom top stats guy, one, your guy is stronger than their top guy. Two, you're fairly equivalent. Three, you're outmatched. Let's start with the first scenario. You are stronger. So first thing, as soon as KvK starts, you need to rush into the palace as fast as you can. You need clock management is critical for KvK. You need to make sure that your clock is roughly synced up to the other people's clocks. If your clock is behind, let's say by an hour, then they can finish their own KvK, and then all their top players are free to come over to your kingdom and start trying to conquer it. So you need to rush as fast as you can to the palace, set up a mega garrison, and then all the other people to jump in. Usually, no one will come at the first second to reset you, but we are careful. So roughly, I'd say it takes us about 12 to 16 seconds to have about 600k troops, maybe 800k troops inside the palace with a mega garrison. So we are very adamant about being tight on this structure. And then you're inside the palace, you fill it up fully, you have like 1.5, 1.7 people inside, and then you're holding the palace. Now, let's say the other kingdom comes and wants to try to conquer you, and they are weaker than your main stats guy. They have two options. First option, they mega rally your castle. Before that. The Conquering Kingdom cannot interact with anything that is outside the forest. That's why we all just choose a spot, let's say here or anywhere outside the forest, and all the people are parked outside the forest. That way, we don't need to think about defending our own, and no one can touch us. We don't need to be careful, to hide troops and stuff like that. Just everyone parks here and rushes troops to the palace. Let's say they want to go and mega rally you. If they mega rally you, then one thing is that, so there is a strategy of filling up the forest with various castles all around, filling it up. Why is this useful? This is useful for two reasons. One, to increase the time that a mega rally takes. This is more relevant to fights where your stats are roughly similar or someone who is overpowered. And two, to make them march, to waste speed ups to march to towers if they want to do the towers fighting. How much useful it is? Debatable. On some KvKs it's critical. On most, I would say it's less important to fill the forest with the players who are shielded. Now, assume their guy is coming and he wants to mega rally you. He mega rallies the palace and loses because he is weaker. Then you lost troops in the palace. You need to add troops back inside. Notice that most of the troops that die in an attack are infantry. So when you add troops, you need to send either only infantry or mostly infantry to fill up the palace. Then they may mega rally you again, and then you send troops again, and then it becomes a war of economy. How many people they have versus how many people you have who are willing to send and lose troops. We had in the previous KvK a kingdom came and I was stronger, and they just dumped, I think, 8 million troops. And I mean, 8 million troops died. We lost, I think, 3-4 million troops. And this was costly, this was painful. I mean, we won, kudos to us, but if they had another, I would say, 20 million troops to dump, we were starting to get pretty thin. So this is something to take note of. The second strategy that the guy can do is to take towers. So as I mentioned in the previous video, a tower shoots every 4 minutes and takes 1% of your troops. This is a lot. Here, if your forest is filled with palaces, it will take him, he will need to waste speed ups to reach to a tower. At this point, it becomes a war on towers. When defending, I would recommend that all the players in this alliance, in your alliance, will just send small amount of cavalry to the towers all the time. Usually, the towers are not held by strong marches, but rather by small marches being sent by roughly fairly smaller players. Because if you think about it, except from their top guy, who can withstand an attack, no one can send a full march, because you can attack that full march. So this is so usually the towers are held by low power troops. You will want to have some stronger players to attack towers. You could park them near the towers, the stronger players. Notice that once you're inside the forest, then you're vulnerable, you're at risk, and then they can attack you. So you can put people inside the forest only that can stand a solo hit by anyone. Other than that, I wouldn't put people in the forest. Now, a point about the first scenario where he mega rallies. If he puts people here, let's say he puts a person here, a person here, a person here, and they all mega rally. Even if you are the top guy who is inside the palace, you can still attack with all the marches that you want. Remember that you can have only one march inside one of the 5 towers, but attacking players, you can attack as much as you want. The best strategy in this case, if they've done this mistake, is to wait for the mega rally to start. Once it started, then you attack the players that are here, and when they lose, they are poured out, and the troops that are inside the mega rally disappear, go with them. And then the mega rally becomes much weaker. If, on the other hand, they set up their troops, their palaces somewhere around here, then even if you zero them, they are not ported, and the mega rally will hit. So this is another element on defense. So in this case, if the attacker is weaker than your top guy, this is roughly what you need to do, just hassle with towers. If their top guy is much stronger than your second top guy, then you can just hold the tower for 8 hours. This will be costly. It will cost you about 15% of the troops every hour. So it could cost you, let's say, march and a half for 8 hours. This is annoying. This is costly, but manageable. You just need to keep adding troops. Remember, when the tower hits, it's random troops. When someone hits, it's infantry. So refill accordingly. Let's say that someone comes that is roughly the same stats as you. Well, then the difference. So towers is the same element, but if he mega rallies you, he can reset you, and this becomes very annoying. So he can reset you, and then there's a question of whether he will try to conquer you or not. If he doesn't try to conquer you, just reset you, and you have the same stats, or the same strength, stats, and rally size, there will be an element of random. So he can send one mega rally, which will lose, but the second one will win. Even if he's a bit weaker, he can still send one that will lose, second that will lose, the third one will win, because there's a fairly strong RNG element in the game. So he can reset you basically forever. Do note that to bring people to another kingdom to Mega Rally is tough. You need to be a very organized kingdom to be able to organize this. But some kingdoms are capable of doing this. If he tries to conquer, he has no chance. You just take all the 4 towers, and whenever you choose to, you can just reset him. Maybe it will take you 1 Mega Rally, maybe it will take you 2 Mega Rallies, but you reset and then let towers hit for another 6 hours, and then reset again, and they will suffer tremendous casualties. Yeah. So this is the second scenario. Now the third scenario, what happens if you're overpowered? This happened to us twice. I mean, in 2 matchups in the last 12 weeks. So for example, we got matched up with Kingdom 145 with F15, who at the time was way stronger than me. I think 150% stronger than me, something like that. And he was, I think, Tunnel 37, I was 32, I think, so he had a bigger rally size. And he was very strong. Now he came here to conquer us. What can you do in this scenario? So one, you take towers. So you take as many towers as you can, but he can just refill the towers over and over again. It will be painful. If he has someone who is super strong, probably they have other people who are somewhat strong who can fend off other towers, but they can grind through and try to conquer you. And then the strategy that you need to, well, actually I highly recommend to practice it. We actually done drills in our kingdom to practice this, is how to sync up Mega Rallies. You need to be able to sync up 2 or 3 or 4 Mega Rallies from your top stats players in the kingdom, and you need to be able to sync them up to a second. So you need the strongest to hit, half a second later the second, half a second later the third, half a second later the fourth. You need to practice this, otherwise it won't happen. If, for example, you have 6 seconds difference, it's a huge amount of time for someone to speed up and refill a palace or to reheal troops. So this is the base core mechanic on how to fend off an attacker who is way stronger, syncing up Mega Rallies. And then you have basically 2 options that you can do. One option is to sync up 2, 3, 4 Mega Rallies to reset the palace and then run away. Because he is stronger, he can reset you again. Notice that at the moment of conquering a palace, you are not mega garrisoned and you're super vulnerable. So you need to pull back troops out as fast as possible or set up a mega garrison as soon as you're inside. A second strategy that you can do is to attack the player itself, the top stats player. So, for example, F15, when he attacked us back then, he started with 580 million power. By the end of the KvK, he was 170 million power. And back then, we weren't trained at syncing up Mega Rallies. So we've done loads of mistakes. It was painful. It was a painful war. And he was able to conquer us. But if this happened today, with the same stats gap, there's no way in hell we will destroy him or the attacking kingdom. So you can either zero the attacking player or to reset the palace. And then it becomes a game of economy. So how effective you are at making them lose troops and how effective without losing too much. The sad thing here is that this will work if he plans to conquer you. If his plan is not to conquer you, but rather to just reset you, you're screwed. I mean, there is nothing you can do. He can just come, they set up a Mega Rally, they reset you, and they come back again after 7 hours and again and again. I think it happened to Kingdom 122 last KvK. I saw them, they held them off for 14 days. They reached the next KvK without finalizing the previous one. which is a bit of a dick move, I think. If we don't plan to conquer, we won't just reset a kingdom. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of um, pointless to just reset a kingdom. But it can happen, and in this case, if someone is overpowered and just wants to reset you, or even if someone who has fairly similar stats and willing to lose the first mega until the random number generator favors him to reset you, yeah, you can't conquer a kingdom in this state. You will stay forever resetted. This, I think, in terms of defense, in terms of strategy center, if they hold the palace, put a boom cannon on it. If they hold a tower, put a boom cannon on it, though they can just switch towers. Put a boom cannon on the player itself. You could freeze, though you can break freeze, like I explained in the previous video. But you could, because why not? You have enough alliances here. I think these are the basic strategies on how to defend your own kingdom from various types of invaders. Alright, take care.